Let's say one day you got approached by a fortune teller and he told you, well, like 15 years from now, don't fight at all, otherwise you'll die. And what would you do? Well, it happened to one guy named Tiziano Terzani, and he wrote a book about it, depicting the whole situation, and it's a crazy ride. So strap on and let's begin. By the way, the drawing that you see right now, it's a scene from the book. We will address it at the end of the presentation over here, but it is very, very relevant, and it is a crazy ride, right? So the short story is very short. He walks in Hong Kong, and some crazy guy chases him and says, yeah, in 13 or 15 years from now, don't go on any flights, otherwise you'll die. Some kind of fortune teller that he did not even invite to predict anything. Well, and as the time passes, he says, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna try to do it. Now, the big problem is this guy is a journalist in Asia for European paper, flying all over. That's what he does. That's what he is doing. His life is all about it for decades. That's like, if he doesn't fly, his wife says, go somewhere, there's a war in some place, just go there, you drive me nuts, you need to travel. So that's the type of guy that says, well, you know what, I'm not going to travel for 1 year. Right? And he said other things. He set other rules. So, for example, he would say, you know what, while I'm traveling, I'm going to be, of course, documenting everything, but I'm also going to speak to every fortune teller that I can find along my way. And I'll try to reach from, I believe it was from Bangkok to all the way to he went to Cambodia, and he went to Myanmar, and he went to Singapore. It was the kind of one round trip, and then on one of the loops he went actually on a train through China to Europe, and then came back on a boat. So it was kind of imagine yourself like a number 8 figure that has 2 borders in it. That's kind of the route that he took. It doesn't matter. What matters is that he met crazy people, like super crazy. And he also said that, you know what, I'm going to be staying in a cheapest place that I can find, just to feel the place. So no crazy hotels. And the idea is now that in 1993, which is it's like 30 years ago, already then, traveling without planes was practically impossible, and he describes it really well. But another thing that he does, he shows you what kind of crazy history the places that he visits has. And it's really an exposure that you never get to see. If you would like to know what happened to Myanmar, what happened to Cambodia, what happened to Indonesia, what happened in Singapore, all of those things, you would have to address them separately, and still it would not be immersion the way that he does it. So the book is very, very recommended in that regard. But that's like the overview of the book. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into what he saw. And from now on, that's going to be huge spoilers, by the way. Well, you decide. I don't think the spoilers on this specific kind of book retracts anything from it. Because it's all about the experience. It's all about the way you want to read this book. So even if I tell you everything, still the immersion that it creates, that's the point of the book. Everything else is mainly facts, right? So he starts with normal types of fortune tellers. For example, someone that knows tarot cards. And on my channel, there's a video about tarot card creating that's actually about this book as well. But, well, tarot cards, of course, someone tells you what's going to happen, trying to lay out the cards. In another place, they try to examine his hands. So many people are examining hands. Everybody are asking him when he was born, at what time. And he says, well, I was born in this place, but I don't know the exact time. Everybody are creating those really weird damage control situations when they say, oh, well, if we don't know the exact time, that's not going to be an exact prediction. It's going to be a good prediction, but it's fine. But they kind of hint at it, and then they give him a wild prediction. It's like, oh, you're going to have a bunch of kids, or like you have 5 kids, like or 3 kids. And by the way, they know Europeans, so they say you have 2 kids, 1 girl, 1 boy, as if it's hard. I mean, statistically, it's really hard to make a mistake. And when they make a mistake, they just say, oh, well, the dates were not correct, or, you have two brothers. And it's like, no, I don't. Well, one of them died in the womb and you absorbed him. Right? That's the kind of conversations he's having. Okay, and now when you see that I'm kind of addressing it in this way, you need to understand that he is looking at it from exactly the same perspective. The tone of the book is a guy that is entirely European, very practical. He saw war. He kind of moved from Italy to China and Singapore for a while, and then moved to Bangkok, and then to India. This is a guy that travels, absorbs information, covers very serious topics. He is very, very pragmatic, and when he goes to those people, he analyzes what are they doing from the Western perspective. It's not about being shanty. Oh, predictor, you made so many good predictions, I believe now. Nothing like that sort. Nothing of this kind. What he does, though, he reviews it from the cultural perspective, and it is really weird. One of the places that he visited was a temple where there's like a virgin that was in a trance, and she had helpers that would allow her to tell him what's going on. And then in Bangkok, he met a couple of people with translators. One of the people that he met was a Buddhist monk in a temple that has some prediction powers. And this is what actually the image that you see right now is all about. The terraces and are kind of a thing about the whole Thai region and everything around it, because on those terraces, they grow rice, but also there is a small shrine that you will see I added at the end of the video, and those shrines are for the ghosts of the hill, and they have those ghost shrines, small temples where you give your gifts and pray to them, and you wish for them to leave you alone or go away or bless you or anything like this. It's everywhere in those areas in Bangkok, on every hill, near every tree practically. Well, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but near every single house, on a street, in a park, in a government building, everywhere people exist. This is where you will find one of those, and I saw so many of them. I went to Bangkok for like 5 times. It's everywhere in Thailand in general, right? So this is the relevancy. And one of the interesting stories, he goes to this Buddhist monk that has prediction powers. And of course, the monk gives him all of the predictions and everything, but also in the book, he explains the context of everything that you see. And one of the things that the monk is doing, he's chain smoking. He's like one cigarette after another. Apparently, Buddhist monks need to fast every day from 12, from noon basically to the very next morning. And there are many ways to deal with it, but the unique situation with the Buddhist monks in Thailand is that they are allowed to smoke. So this is how they are dealing with the hunger, just one cigarette after another. And this is just something that you would never find out. I mean, read a book about Thailand, read a book about Buddhism. Would you ever find out something like that? And that's an insight of a person that lived there and he understands the differences, right? So definitely an interesting insight. Now, about the predictions themselves, he goes to people that throw bones, and they read his palm, and they touch his head, and they do astrology predictions. They go into trance. They look at his body at one situation, just looking at his body. They try to read the stars, and while I listed all of those methods, probably half of them are forgotten. And what he shows is that there is a cultural significance to the predictions that he is being offered. What is the cultural significance? What drives the minds of the people of the area? And because this is Asia and everybody are kind of based on impoverished countries that are developing like crazy, the main thing that you can wish from a fortune teller is like, where's my money? How do I get money? And many people are using them like on a daily basis. Everybody have their best psychic that would allow them to see the future, and they consult them on everything, every little thing. But the point is, they kind of use them as coaches. If you remember, there was like this coach movement in the West, where everybody were going to be coached by a certified coach, certificately person that has marketing all over them, but they kind of guide you through action, and it's basically externalizing your motivation, right? You go to a guy and he says, go do the stuff that you want. It's like, what do you want? Money. Go make your money. And that's how we do it in the West, or at least it was like a trend about 5 to 10 years ago. But for them in Asia, that's what the fortune tellers are. And so when he goes, they wish for your fertility, they wish the well-being of your kids, they give you the money predictions, and they kind of look at you and say, they're looking at this guy, he's like 50 already by that time, and they say, well, you're not going to be rich, you're never been poor, but you're not going to be rich. And I'm like, oh, come on, you see what he's wearing, you see what his age, probably he's not going to be striking gold anytime soon, right? But that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Now, a couple of more interesting things and observations. For example, when he talks about Cambodia, and it's in 1993, so it was just barely opened, right? So not as developed as now. And he discusses the Chinese influences on everything. He says that they're infiltrating and they're migrating and they're trying to create a culture, the Chinese culture in the place. And by Chinese culture, it means the drive to get money, right? So, for example, he left Singapore and went back to it after about 20 years. And he says, well, everything is air conditioned. 1993. Everything is air conditioned. The Singapore that he knew, where he needed to leave the window open and hope for a breeze. Now it's not a problem at all. You are seeking the heat because you go to the cab. You need there is an AC. You go to every building, there is an AC. Everywhere has air conditioner, and also the treatment of the tourists. Trying to entice them to spend money and not to talk about some topics from a critical perspective, even by the taxi drivers, because they are incentivized to keep all of this going. All of those expositions. He tells a crazy story about the slaves that he found in Myanmar, which was unfortunately and right now reoccupied by the military. But when he visited it was in one of those times where it wasn't, or it was just post this military coup, another one that they have. It's kind of where history repeats itself in that area. And he tells a story how he meets the political prisoners, which are essentially slaves that are rebuilding the country. And they're kind of hushed away for him not to see, but he still can see them, and managed to even squeeze in some small interview, or at least get the responses from them. And I think he donated them cigarettes or something like that. I don't remember correctly what he did, but they are not allowed to receive stuff. And when they get at least something beyond slavery, food and treatment, it's considered to be a good thing. And he sees it with his own eyes, and he describes it. He describes the crazy situation where, Chinese go through Mongolia on a Trans-Siberian train, and they exchange goods with the people in Russia that just jump on the trains, jump on the windows, like, hey, what do you got? Doesn't matter what you got. It's like, how much? And he's like, 5 rubles, and it's 1993 rubles, well, maybe not 5, maybe like 500. They don't know 500 what it will buy them. They just throw their money and they throw their goods out of the train window. if those are good merchants. Sometimes they just get the money and don't give them at all. People like stay with their mouths open on the platform, like, hey, I gave you my last money. I'm a poor Russian man. What are you doing to me? And he saw that thing happen with his own eyes, and the way he describes it is really fantastic. So as far as the recommendation goes, I would really love to talk with people that read this book and have insights. For me, I learned a lot about the region. I had no idea all of those expositions, all of those historical context. I mean, you do know about Pol Pot, you do know what they were doing, but for example, did you know that they made people climb up the palm tree? And if you are not able to climb up the palm tree, then you are not a real peasant and therefore you should be killed. Imagine your life being dependent on that. I mean, if you read the history books, probably you'll see something about glasses, of course, the persecution, how they were looking for doctors and stuff like that. But climbing a palm tree, that's something else. And the way that he describes it really helps you to understand what's going on. And there are many, many expositions of this kind. The only critical thing that I have about him is romanticizing the things that we lost. In his mind, it's like the culture that is lost and it's all losing to the Western ideals. But essentially, to me, it means like, well, stay the way you are, but somehow manage to achieve what the Westerners did. It's not as easy. You just cannot expect people to get there without repeating also many other things. For example, commercializing music and exchange of goods and packaging and the way that the housing is built, the efficiencies, they all create a uniform approach, regardless of what culture you originate from, and only small bits that are not really in contradiction to this approach. This is what remains, right? So, but he is not looking at it from this perspective. That's the only criticism that I have of him, but not of the overall book. The way to read it is very, very important. When you read the book, go to YouTube Music and switch your radio channel to the 90s, the music from the 90s of the region where he's at. So if he's in Thailand and he's in a rural area, just search for Thai folk music from the 90s and listen to this playlist while you're reading. When he goes to Cambodia, listen to the Cambodian music from the 90s. There's not going to be really folk music, not too much, but the pop music of that time is very, very significantly different from what you hear right now or in other regions. When he's in China, do the same. You'll see how you can kind of merge his experience and descriptions with the music of this place, how it feels like. And to me, it was a fantastic ride. I mean, every time I opened the book, I just put some music that corresponds to his place. And it's a great immersion. It's like full chapter of trying to feel how it feels like on a sunny day in, I don't know, in Indonesia. So definitely worth the ride and worth this approach. Okay, well, this video gets too long. This is probably one of my longest one. Enjoy the book and I'll see you in the next one.